Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever, wherever you're watching us. Welcome to another episode of Conical Supremacy. I'm John Noreko, and gosh, we got a really great show for you today, and I'm really looking forward to it. Both Doug and I are kind of stoked. And just take a second to introduce my co-host, Mr. Doug Tornquist. Yay!
How you doing?
I'm really good, man. How are you?
You know, doing great. What's that? Super Dyna Whoppin'. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, man, how was your week this week?
It was fine. Teaching started.
Yeah.
We kicked it off. We had a big master class at USC with a Zoom gathering with Marcus Rojas. That was illuminating. And then teaching started. So I've got to round up my students. They're in all corners of the U.S. Some even farther flung than that. Um, Catch up with lessons. I got to go out of the house and work a little bit this week, and we're having a heat wave. How hot is it where you are? It's 88 degrees here.
Well, yesterday it topped out at 89. I looked at the pool and I actually was thinking about it. And then I thought, then I checked the temperature and I said, no, that's not going to happen. Uh, I actually did think about turning on the heater though, but I'm cheap. So, but the worst thing was I was chemicaling the pool and a full bottle of chlorine slipped out of my hand and hit the concrete, splashed up, and went directly into my eye.
No.
Yeah, it was awful. And I immediately rinsing it out, and it actually, I think I burned the mucous membrane with the chlorine on all around my eye. So for the last 2 days, I've been putting that eye salve
Uh-huh.
in there at night, which is just, how shall I put it, incredibly uncomfortable. But other than that, you had a session this week, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yes, sir. It's good to be back to work. We had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't
Uh,
really talk about it. But I will say that it was for brass and winds. I think it was about 25 people, and
Usual suspects.
the usual suspects, and which means greatest players on earth. And it was, I was just reminded of how nice it is, to make music with people. I mean, I spent a lot of time in this room playing these horns, recording myself. That's all great, but to actually play with people and respond and to get into other people's sound and to feel your sound, feel the room hum with a beautiful A flat major chord. I mean, there's just nothing like that. It's what we
No,
live for.
there absolutely is nothing like that. It's just, God, how I miss it. I mean, um, actually, Quinn and I did some recording this week. Finally, getting back into the saddle, as it were,
Beautiful.
and mostly because my only high school student is had to finish up some more recording stuff, and he's shopping his wares right now to all the schools. But I figured as long as Tech Sergeant Quinn was there, we'd try to knock out. For those of you who don't know, um, when Disney, March 19th was my last day at Disney, and then I was kind of freaking out, going, "What am I going to do?" So Doug already knows this. My jazz group, Tubop, we did over the course from basically the end of March till the governor decided that he was going to lock down the universe. I think we did 25 concerts, but live streams every week, which were super fun, and I miss it greatly. But the one thing I always wanted to do was use the tuba in a more melodic forward fashion, and with my love of film music, as Doug unfortunately knows, I started a whole series of um, tuba and film music. And I played this for Doug earlier when we were doing our tech test, and he said it was cool if I play this. So here's just a little taste of what I've been doing, and thanks, Doug, for letting me play this.
Can't
This
wait.
I think you'll all know the tune. Let it run, Quinn. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that.
Well,
I've always loved that tune ever since I was a kid, and I saw the first Godfather film. It was just like, man, that's just a absolutely beautiful melody, and I think as a tuba player, we all need to start playing more beautiful melodies. It's just, it's a, it, I look at it all the time, and people always ask, well, you can't do that, or you can't play that, and I'm like going, well, why not?
mhm.
Why not play that? Why not do that stuff? And if you check out my YouTube channel, there's a whole bunch of why not, why can't I play this kind of stuff on there. Um, but I think thinking out of the box, I think that's one thing that COVID has taught me even more is to get out of that Amazon box of tuba and and look at the big, UPS box that shows up, because it should all be music. And just because it's written for cello or written for trumpet or written for oboe or for whatever, why not? If it's a beautiful melody and there's cool stuff to play, a friend of mine just sent me, I'm working on it right now, is the violin sonata in G minor by Bach. And he did a really nice little transcription / arrangement thing for, he's going to be offering it up soon. And I'm having just an absolute gas working that out. It's just, why not, man? I mean,
Yep. Yep.
everybody bitches, I'm so tired of the rep. I'm so tired of the rep. I mean,
No, that's not, well, first of all, no, no, no. We cannot complain about all these gifts that composers have given us. If,
correct.
if you want more music, then go commission it. I mean, that's what Harvey Phillips did.
Yeah.
But there's all this music out there that is waiting for us to play it. Some of the greatest hits of the tuba repertoire are transcriptions.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we're continually reminded, if you want to play the theme from The Godfather, go for it. If you want to play the flower song from Carmen, go for it. Gene Pocorni took all the greatest hits of Romeo and Juliet, the ballet, and made it into, I mean, just it's music. So yeah.
Yeah, I just, like I said, and it's funny you mentioned the transcription thing, because in our little, we always do a tech test here before and talk to our guest before we always go live, as it were. And one of your fondest memories of our guest was actually playing one of the cello suites.
That is true.
And, I think maybe we should bring our guest in now so we can start talking to him and stop talking to me and you. So go ahead, man.
Well, I was going to say, should we show that picture of
No, actually, we're gonna play that 2-minute video bump
Fantastic.
that just shows how awesome our guest really is.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let it run, Quinn.
Thank you, Doug, for inviting me, and greetings to all of you. I'm Joanne Falletta, and I have had the privilege of working together with Don Harry for 2 decades. When I first came to the Buffalo Philharmonic, I knew that I was going to have a star in the principal tuba chair, an extraordinary colleague, because Don's reputation as an incredible player was well known. And in those years, I had the pleasure of performing so much of the orchestra repertoire for large orchestra and recording over 50 CDs with Don's beautiful voice on them. What I couldn't have known, though, until I met Don personally, was his extraordinary spirit, his goodness, his generosity, his sense of humor, his kindness, his unfailing support of his colleagues, and his karma, which surrounded not only the brass section, but the entire orchestra. The BPO was very fortunate to have Don for all of these years, and I am fortunate that he's my friend, and I have learned so much from him. I travel a lot for guest conducting, and Don knows this because I would always report it to him when I came back to Buffalo. Wherever I went as a guest conductor, in the intermission of the first rehearsal, I could see the tuba player making a beeline for me, and sometimes he was accompanied by his trombone colleagues or trumpets as well. And the first thing they would say is, "How's Don?" I studied with him. I was in a master class with him. I owe my job to him. He is the greatest. Please tell him I said hello. And this is not only in the United States. These are in such far-flung places as New Zealand and mainland China. Don's positive energy is everywhere. Don, because of the pandemic, we have had to delay the party in your honor, but we're looking forward to it. I can't wait to see you again. From the entire BPO, we salute you, we thank you, we miss you, and we love you.
Thanks, Joanne. Mr. Don Harry in the house tonight. Yeah, man. How are you, sir?
Good. Doing good.
This is great to have you, Don. Just absolutely wonderful. What a career you've had. And do you mind telling us how long you were in Buffalo? Because to be honest with you, I don't know.
I came here in 73.
73.
I played in the Oklahoma Symphony the year before that. And that summer I played rodeos. Played a rodeo in Arkansas. Drove to Buffalo pretty much nonstop overnight and took the audition. And that was kind of it.
That's so awesome, man. I mean, 73, I was just getting into playing tuba, as it were. And but you're one of the guys I think has really shown having the right teacher and continuing the legacy. I mean, your teacher was William Bell. I mean, think about that. That just blows my mind. I mean, I thought I was cool with Perantoni, and Arnold, but William Bell. I mean, the guy. I was telling my son today, he basically codified 20th century tuba playing. I think. I mean, it's just we all wanted to sound like Bill, right?
That's true. The weirdest thing was there was this music camp in Colorado at Gunnison, and one summer Roger Bobo was there, Arnold was there, Harvey Phillips was there, and Bell was there. And Bell, those summer music camps for those guys, it's just one big party. And so Bell comes out. I'm pretty sure he was really hungover, and plays "It's Just Mysterious" on that E flat sousaphone, and it was just like the most beautiful thing I ever heard. And he probably missed every note. It was just, but the sound was just like you were totally captivated by the sound. And then the other thing, of course, Roger was still a grad student at Eastman, so he was there with Miraphone. So I would sit outside and listen to him practice a couple hours every afternoon. It was just absolutely an amazing thing. And that's when Arnold did the Strauss concerto. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys have heard the Paganini Perpetual Motion with Bell, Jacobs, and Phillips in unison. That was that same summer. So it was like
wow, man, just
X-rated.
Awesome times. I brought up the fact that one of Doug's favorite renditions of the Cello Suites was something that you did. And Doug, show us the picture.
Oh, right. This was, is the glare off?
Yeah, it's good.
This was the tuba conference held here in Los Angeles. Yeah, there's the picture. In 1978. And I was still in high school. That's me, second from the left in the front row. Don, I know you're in that picture too. Jim Self is in there in the back. Tommy Johnson there by the Triple C tuba. And I went to your recital, Don, which it was a mere 42 years ago. But I have not forgotten it. I remember, it was the summer of extended techniques. Half the recitals that summer were for tuba and tape. Okay. And I think that's a valley we have passed through and climbed out of. But
or back to.
But that was there were two notable three notable things that summer. One was the premiere of the Broughton Concerto. One was the appearance of Zdzisław Piernik, that tuba player from Warsaw who played with bassoon reeds and Barry sax reeds. And the other was your recital, Don, where you played Bach Cello Suite. You just told me it was number 4. And I remember that you were doing circular breathing. You just started and you didn't breathe again until the end. And that was, everyone was so jealous. Like, how does he do that? We were all trying to do circular breathing in those days. So you made a huge impression on me as a 16-year-old. I also followed in your footsteps in the Souza Band. I was playing in the Souza Band when you weren't there, or after you were there. And all I heard about was Don Harry and how great he sounded. And Don did it this way. Don did it this way. I was like, okay, I get
it. Don, speaking of the cello suites, man, do you find yourself going back to those, or I mean, that was somewhat over 40 years ago, and now throughout that time, is that something that you kind of keep up? Is that something that you go back to because it's just great music? I'm just curious.
All the time.
All the time.
Because it's the kind of thing you just never feel like you get there. And the thing about those is not trying to perfect them the way you would perfect an etude, but to sit down and perform them just by yourself in a room. And my gold standard for being ready to play something serious is that I like to be able to sit down and on a C tuba play suites 1 through 5 nonstop. And it takes a couple of weeks to get that level of strength up. But that's, I'm sort of one of those OCD overdoer kind of people. So and I'll just, I'll just go nuts on those kind of things. But mostly it's because I love the melodies, and I love every time I look at them. Every time I look at anything by Bach, I learn more and more, and you just kind of get back to what they're all based on, which is a chorale, the German chorale.
You bring up a really great thing, because one of the reasons I go back to them very frequently is, as a jazz musician, I look at Bach as probably one of the greatest improvisers that's ever lived. And when you look at the lines that are created, and there's a big point of contention about Baroque music and whatnot. Was it really written like this, or did somebody play like that and Bach said, that's really cool, I'm writing that down? And because there was a great deal of improvisation going on in the Baroque era. I don't think people really know that. But I look at those lines as jazz lines a lot, because there's not only the melodic content, but how he spins the melody within that. And that's truly what I think improvisation is about, is that spontaneous melodic invention thing, where you're trying to take this nugget and shine it up into like a diamond thing after this other smaller diamond, which is the melody, continues to go. And for me, Bach really does that for me. Not to mention, he's the guy who invented changes. I mean, without figured bass, there'd be no changes. So for me, that's how I think. I really encourage everybody out there to never put that book away. Or I think I'm on my 4th book because it gets dog-eared and nasty and whatnot. But along those lines, Don, can you tell us? Do you mind if we go to a couple of pictures right now?
Sure.
What can we bring up? Yes. Are they in order, Quinn? Okay. So this guy, what was it like being a student of this guy?
Somewhere between your drunk uncle and R. Lee Ermey.
Awesome.
He was he was a complete, absolute perfectionist and completely irrational. So the best example I can give you is he was at the Gunnison Festival in Colorado for 2 summers, and Arnold was there for 3 summers. And at the end of the first summer, I asked Mr. Bell how I could get better, and he said to buy an Arbin, put the metronome at 60, play the whole thing, go back to the beginning, play it at 66, 72, 80. So I did for 8 hours a day for about a month. And so I did what he said. And by the time I got to Indiana, I had done everything he said, and like all young idiots, I could play a bunch of stuff really, really fast. And go to the first lesson. We open the Arvin book, pretty much like page 30. We literally start there. And his sense of time was exactly like someone, if you've ever played with people from the Count Basie band, like the hardest piece I've ever played is Cute, with members of the Basie band on our stage at Buffalo. It's almost impossible to play that with those guys. But his time was like that. So, and for some unknown reason, he played with you all the time. So if you weren't with him, you knew something was wrong with you, but you didn't know what it was. And being, the irrational guy, he never would tell you. He would just get enraged. So you either figured out how to do it or you didn't. And I sort of accidentally learned how to teach by trying to explain to my fellow students what I was fairly sure he wanted us to do in the lessons, because he just didn't say anything. He just did what he said. And it was completely irrational. I mean, that Paganini Perpetual Motion, you played that at the end of every lesson, along with the scherzo to the Hindemus Sonata. and he would just pick up whatever horn was near him. It could be that, to me, horrible E-flat sousaphone. And he would just play along with you from memory, looking at your fingerings to make sure you were using the fingerings that matched his horribly out-of-tune King C. Those King C's have the most incredible sound, but trying to play them is just like a nightmare pitch-wise. And it was just, it was sink or swim. And, you drive people crazy.
Can I ask a question about Bill Bell? I've always
Bring us up.
Was it that he was just better than everyone else, or was he one of those towering giants of men who had more character? Because I've heard these conflicting stories, and he seems to inspire a reverence among his students that is uncommon. What was his secret, that he was just simply a perfectionist and he sounded better than anyone else?
I would say the thing about him is that he was sort of like the tuba player's version of The Iceman Cometh. It's like they're always waiting for the Iceman to show up, and Bell was the Iceman. Wow. And so if you imagine, his career starting with the Harold Bachman band and then going to the Souza Band, that was the classical music equivalent of going right from the Ellington band to the Basie band. So his sense of time, combined with his natural talent and his ability to follow soloists, which Souza did not do. Souza just kept time, but Bell would follow the soloist precisely. And somewhere along the way, he either took singing lessons or he knew how to sing, and he had a giant repertoire of singing songs built into it, his whole being. But when he played, his thing was, the older people that I've met told me that when he played the B-flat tuba, that was the real guy. And if you listen to that recording, that whatever Bill Bell plays the tuba, there's a couple of things that are played on a B flat Martin tuba, and you can tell that they're really like seriously unbelievable. And then there's some stuff that's not so much on that same recording, but he had endless air when he was young. His rib cage was unbelievable, and so if you look at the old pictures next to those sousaphones, some of those are 45, 50-pound sousaphones, and he's probably the second tallest guy in the section. So by the time we met him, I would guess him to be 5'10" and like 3 feet in diameter, especially around the rib. He just ate so much food, his whole skeleton collapsed. And so, I don't think anyone would have a career like that now, because it's what I call the backwards career. His youth was based on he could play, and he was young and strong, and he did nothing about it. He all his etudes, all his books, they're beneficial, but they're not for him. So any of my stuff is stuff I use every day in some form to do exactly what I want to do every day. But his thing was, he just lived the life, literally the so-called life of Riley. He played with natural talent and just kind of let it decay. And at a certain point, he was not only famous, but he was controlling jobs. So at one point, there were people in jobs in orchestras that were not as big as they are now. And the conductor would call and ask him, who should I get? And he would say, well, so-and-so. And people would just literally be hired on his say-so. And
wow.
So it was just the most irrational.
Did that continue through his years at Indiana when you were his student there?
Oh, wait.
So I don't think so, but I'm fairly certain that there were some people who went there because they thought that was going to be part of the deal. And I never knew. Oh, first of all, you have to realize I'm from a town of 7,000 people in Oklahoma. I have no clue what goes on in the mass giant communities that exist that, by the time I got there, if you told me to do something, I would do it. But I had no idea that people were literally going there hoping to be put in a job by him. And, those days were long gone. But when he was in New York, he was quite dangerous. If he didn't like you, then you might not ever get a job.
Wow.
And the only one I know that did not drink, and he absolutely said that he didn't trust anyone who didn't drink. So of course we all attempted to learn how to drink immediately, and to this day you could bring me $1,000 bottle of wine and I'll throw up just smelling it. We tried, and if you've never had alcohol, that's a really bad thing.
Sure.
But it was just like everything about him was just off the top of his head. Dangerous stuff. To student. If you did that stuff now, you'd be fired. You'd be, first of all, spend about a week in HR and throwing up all over the sidewalk in front of the school, and then you're fired. But his whole thing, just like the party was everything. I think I sent you a picture of a bunch of people, at one of his parties. It was just beyond belief.
No. Quinn, what are you doing?
Showing the picture.
Oh, where? This one?
Yeah.
Is this the picture?
Yeah.
There he is.
So who all is in there, Don?
Sitting next to Bell is on his right, on his left is Sam Nagy. The red shirt, that's Paul Kraswicki. There's Andy Newman is in there. The guy on the far left top, that's Bob Russ in Milwaukee. And it was just the world's smallest weird little house, and his idea of a party was just criminal. It probably made my life.
That's so awesome.
It's a good thing oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to move on to another picture. Can we show the Horowitz picture, Quinn? There we go, right there. So that's Vladimir Horowitz at the piano, and I take it that's your bell right there above the piano lid. And what year was this?
I'm not even sure, but it's easy to find online. It's his last performance with Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 3. And my biggest obsession is the piano, and especially Horowitz. I wore out many Horowitz recordings.
Oh yeah,
working on Beethoven sonatas and stuff like that. And suddenly, there he is, and I get to play. As we say, stay awake and play some really long whole notes. But it was like adrenaline from hell.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Don. I was fortunate enough when I was at the Interlochen Arts Academy my last year. That would have been 1981. I got to see Horowitz play live, and it was unfortunately I got there a little late, so it was SRO only. I did not mind standing up for the entire time. It was unbelievable, and the sheer artistry of how he manipulates not only the instrument but manipulates the music itself was I'll never forget it. I will never forget it. It was unbelievable to me. And that was probably a U of M or maybe Michigan State, one of the two, because we had to take a bus from Interlochen to go over there and check it out. But I mean, to be on stage and hear that right there within the orchestra itself, that must have been just, who cares if I'm playing whole notes, right?
Right. Goosebumps.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think there's a certain level when all of us get to play with individuals like that, to where you sit there and I know I ask myself, man, I got to get better. God, if somebody can do that, man, what am I missing? I mean, I got to get better. I mean, and it's not just about the technique or anything. It's about, and I was talking to my wife the other night about this too. I need to become a better musician. And I think too much of us blur the line sometimes, especially the younger players, where, well, I can play really well, but that doesn't make you a good musician. And I think both of those are mutually exclusive. And there's being a musician, then there's being a player, and then integrating those things together, which makes you who you are. And for instance, why somebody wants to hire you, because that musicianship needs to be there. And with you taking lessons from Mr. Bell so many years, that fostering that musicianship, I'm sure was part of that experience. I mean, you wouldn't have gotten you got the job in 73, you said, at Buffalo?
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
Good question. 28, maybe.
28. Okay, so 28. So at 28 years old, you get, and this was the 70s, so it was different than it is now as far as that's concerned, about players and whatnot, especially comes equipment and stuff like that. But you had to have been a absolutely fantastic musician and player to get the gig at that time. Would you not agree?
Yeah, it was a totally different thing, and especially, I was, I only had one horn. I had the world's great Miracle in 186, which you guys are going to want to play someday. And you just did it or you didn't do it. In fact, that recital at USC that I heard, people were asking me what kind of F tube I had, and it was just my 186C. And it's literally one of the great ones. I literally thought Marathon was the most amazing company until I played some others later on. And mine just happened to be just right.
Well, you got a good one, right? Go ahead, Doug.
No, I was going to say, I 100%, Don, I've kept my 186 that, my mother bought me in 1975. And I still play it, and my colleagues love it. There's something magical about those. In some ways, this is anathema, but some of the F-tuba stuff is actually better on the C, if you trust the high register.
Absolutely.
And you get more resonance down low. Can you tell us what the audition was like in 1973? I mean, how many guys were there? And
there were about 93 people. I'm still in touch with them. And I've been playing rodeos in Arkansas and Texas, and driving around in an open Jeep with my wife to play rodeos. And so we played a gig in Arkansas, and I got in. We also had a Volkswagen and a Beetle, and I drove to Buffalo. And I think I drove pretty much nonstop, and I took, I spent the night with a friend, and didn't play much because if you play rodeos all the time, your chops are
toast,
cast iron. Yeah. Well, and I just went into the audition, and everything worked. In those days, there was no one, especially Bell, there was no one helping you with how to play an audition or how to, what the psychology is and how to prepare. So you just worked on a bunch of stuff, and you developed what I used to call audition mythology, which was the easy stuff screwed up and the hard stuff came out perfectly.
Yeah.
So you would work on stuff, it would reverse, and so it would be one disaster after another. And but I just a combination of being totally exhausted, which I think is pretty helpful, and just kind of fed up. I mean, in those days, well, Buffalo's has a fantastic auditorium, but not very good facility for auditions. So there were like 90 people down in the lounge honking away, and there were a certain number of odd people at auditions, especially in those days, and people would come up to me and start asking me questions, and did you ever use this fingering or this or that, and I would just pretty much tell them to go screw themselves. And I was just locked on to not listening to any of that kind of stuff, and it worked out. I played, my solo was the Sarabande from Suite Number 5.
Oh, cool.
Circular breathe. So, and that worked out. At that time, my obsession had gotten pretty intense with the cello suites. Because I had been playing in the Oklahoma City Symphony, which was, not very many weeks and not very much salary, so there was nothing else to do.
Huh.
Sure.
Kind of like what we're doing now. We play duets every day.
Yeah. And you were hired by Michael Tilson Thomas was the music director at the time? Uh-huh. Yeah. And the first time I ever heard of the Buffalo Philharmonic, excuse me, I went to see Manhattan, the Woody Allen film from 1979.
Oh, yeah.
And wasn't that the Buffalo Philharmonic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the opening to that is one of my favorite things because I was subbing for either Warren or Botany with New York Phil. Do you know that thing in the beginning where the Plimpton fireworks is going off?
Yeah.
Right, there's aerial shots, and they show Avery Fisher Hall, whatever it's called now. And so we're playing some concert in Avery Fisher. And we hear all this explosion outside. And at intermission, we run out to see what it is, and it turns out to be the fireworks. And so then when I see the movie, I know that we're down there looking up at the fireworks, and that's the Buffalo Philharmonic playing some of that soundtrack in the beginning. That's Michael's recording of the Gershwin overtures that were reconstructed miraculously.
Yeah, it changed the landscape. I remember that recording. All of a sudden, Gershwin was everywhere, and it was because of that movie, and because of those recordings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael's something else. I mean, we went to Carnegie with, Sarah Vaughan and
amazing
Ella, who knows all kinds of insane stuff.
Wow, man. Wow. Just amazing stuff.
Must have been quite a time. What have some of your other highlights been with the orchestra in Buffalo?
Oh, geez. It's like a lot of stuff, but usually it's something to do with Mahler. 5 or 6. It's a lot to do with various bass trombone players that we've had. We had a long period where there was never a stable trombone section.
Really?
From either someone would get a different job, or unfortunately we had literally people get dystonia and not be able to play, and just weird stuff like that.
Hang on.
Once it stabilized, it was great.
Hey, Don, there's this great picture that you sent us. Can you bring it up now, Quinn? Right here. So that's a young Don Harry up there with the rain catcher, and what's this all about, man?
That's the Keith Bryan concert at Wolf Trap, Souza, the new Souza Band. I guess that's the first time, so that's got to be 50 years ago. And
wow, man!
Wasn't
wow.
Arwood.
That was 76. Yeah.
And the other guy, I can't remember. He's a tuba player. Was in the Marine Band. He was the manager of the Kansas City Symphony for quite a long time. Can't believe I've forgotten his career. He was a career officer in the Marine, so he was hardcore. But that was it was one of those. You know how gig mentality is, right?
Oh hell yeah!
You're get in the car, bring some black pants, and you drive all night because you can't get off from the orchestra. And you sit down, and here is this Souza Band thing, and when you play an orchestra for a while, and suddenly you're laying out a band concert. It's like doing push-ups with your face. But that was absolutely incredible. Especially Jeff Arwood. He was in the Army band at that point. It was.
How long were you with the Souza Band? How did you take tours with them?
Yeah. In fact, the last time I did one was about 2 years ago in Iowa.
Really?
Which is the most conservative place I've been recently.
So, I mean, it's got to be interesting to look back and you said that picture was from 50 years ago, and Mr. Bell playing in Souza's band, and now here you're doing the same thing. I mean, it's the impetus behind that is that, I mean, was it, well, if Bill can do it, I can do it, or is it just, I mean, I think Souza's great music, to be honest with you, but your impetus to do that type of thing, was it just a gig, or was it, I'm down with this type of thing where I really want to play this music?
For me, it's Fantasy Camp, because
cool.
The previous tuba player to Bell was a guy named John Coon, who was like me, half Indian and half like Irish and German.
Uh-huh.
He was from Montana, and in fact, I've got one of his horns, or one of the duplicates of his horn, and just the idea, it's always in the back of your mind that you're reenacting. It's got to be like a Civil War reenactor. Being actually at a certain place at Gettysburg or something. That's what it's like. Plus, if you haven't seen the real Souza, that stuff is serious. You know,
Oh yeah,
some
no,
of
it's
introduction-
badass stuff.
yeah, and there are all these long things. I don't even know what they're called. They're not exactly overtures, but they're like sound paintings that he made of Americana, and you're literally just you're playing nonstop for like I don't know how long, an hour, maybe 2 hours, and there's a person up in front with a big placard announcing the next piece. And so what happens is you finish the piece, stand up, take a bow, put the next piece up. By that time, the placard person has gone away, and you are crashing right into the next piece, full bore. And it's a shock, you know, because orchestra is so comfortable, but you know, you forget. I don't know if you guys have ever played the Ringling Circus, but you know, people do not finish the Ringling Circus. Famous people.
Yeah, I did a circus thing for a whole circus season in Phoenix when I was there in '83, and I was, you know, because I was young and stupid and had some chops, so and it just seemed like fun, and I wanted the gig because I could go to school and do the gig, so it was like going bonus, right? So great stuff there, but man, you put the horn down afterwards when you're done, it's like all you want is ice and a beer, and that's all you want.
Literally.
Ice and a beer, baby. Hey, I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead. My fault.
I was going to ask about the Souza Band. You know, I took a few tours with the Souza Band, as I mentioned, and I agree with you. It was an incredible experience to just get a glimpse of what it might have been like to be in the real Souza Band and what superstars those people were. I have to say, the experience I gained in there, you know, in the Souza Band, I learned how to play a march. You go through high school and college, you think you can play a march, but you realize when you play a whole concert of marches that there's a real finesse to that. At least I found that. Would you agree? You know, it's not just playing roots and fifths all night. I mean, there's a real kind of skill.
There's a small group of us who always played the same gigs. Barry Sachs was named Tom Gorin. You probably played with him.
Yeah.
And there's Brian Holt, the drummer.
Yes, I sat next to Brian.
Yeah, and Dimke, you know, the percussion section.
Uh-huh.
So what would happen is we played the concerts, and Keith just kind of came along with us. We took it away from them, and we got to calling it the Heartbeat of America. Who's ever is playing with Brian Holt is in the Heartbeat of America. And you know, it kind of it's as close as you could get, you know, to playing in a great big band, which was that was at a point, after a point, that was my main ensemble in Indiana, was the jazz band.
Really?
I don't blame you, man.
Ultimate thing, you know, compared to sitting there and playing three notes and a WC, something, another ballet, something.
Sure.
Normally I would insert many bad words, but you know, it was like you know, the jazz band is just like you know, that pretty much changed my life.
That's just awesome, man. Hey, we got a video, and I'd like to play it, but I would love for you to kind of set this up, Don. This would be the Eastman Brass Quintet, I believe, is how it was tagged. And how long was your stint at Eastman, teaching-wise?
I'm in my 21st year.
21st year. So
Yep.
I almost went to Eastman. Instead, I went to U of I with Parentoni, and I took a listen to this, and holy crap, can you guys play? I mean, it's just brass playing to the nth degree. I really got to hand it to you. And before I say anything else, I think let's let the audience just take a listen to what I'm talking about here. Here's the Eastman Brass Quintet with our guest, Don. Unbelievable brass playing, my friend. Unbelievable. Just how long ago was that?
Oh, that's got to be 20 years at least. It's at the end of one of my recitals, but I have no idea which one. I try to do one every year.
As you should. And the piece of music, was that tag, Quinn? Because I'm not familiar with that quintet. Are you, Doug?
I can look it up.
Ricochet by Kerry Turner.
Ricochet? All right,
Yeah.
so I gotta look at that because that's just great writing. The guys in that video, are they currently still teaching at Eastman?
Let's see. No, John Marcellus, the trombonist, retired.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Doug, good God, the trumpet player. There's Jim Thompson on the left.
Oh, well, there you go.
I can't believe I've forgotten Doug's last name. Anyway, Doug is now retired, and Peter Cura, the horn player, is still playing. When I first started, it was Barbara and Charlie, Barbara Butler and Charlie Geyer, and Vern Reynolds was playing horn, and John was playing trombone. So it's been it's been kind of like musical therapy being in that group because it's the highest density.
Yeah, it's too bad you couldn't get anybody for that. Really. We were going through the stuff before the show and everything, and I listened to that and just going, "Wow, man, that's just up here. That's just ridiculous stuff." And I think I always aspire to make that kind of music, and for you guys to be able to do that. Do you find yourself in that quintet at that level all the time?
Yeah, we haven't been able to get together for quite a while, but yeah, it's an amazing experience, and
I can only imagine. It's just wow.
The rehearsals can be extremely intense, and because we've done some pretty complex things. We made a recording with 2 string quartets, one by Shostakovich and one by Mendelssohn, and that was a trip and a half doing that.
Oh, I bet, dude. I mean, come on. Figuring that stuff out, which is kind of what I love to do, is to how to figure that stuff out, how to make it work, how to get yourself, like we were talking before we brought you on about my love of music in general. Well, if I really dig that piece, how can I make it fit into this box over here that's a brass quintet? Or I'm working on right now, I started last week, I'm doing an arrangement for tuba ensemble of Ralph Vaughan Williams' theme by Thomas Tallis.
Great.
Because I think it translates really well. The problem is trying to figure out what to pare down, what not to pare down, where the important stuff really is, and then how to use a euphonium the same way as a violin. Because as you know, Don, it's still a brass instrument, and if it's on your face for 5 or 6 minutes, especially up there, that's not going to work out well. And there's very few human beings that can do that kind of stuff. So to make it accessible, and I think that's one thing that the stuff, especially with the quintet that you have right there, I think as a teacher, you always want to put your best foot forward in the group, but you still want to make the music accessible to the students, saying, this is what it should sound like, go for it, right?
Yeah. That's our ensemble at school is called the Eastman Tuba Mirum. Bad, but it makes sense. And it's completely student run. The arrangements, we have a
Awesome.
local guy that makes a lot of arrangements, but almost all of the arrangements are made by the students. And we've had guys who literally had an arrangement on every concert from their freshman day till they graduated. That one guy, Justice McKenzie, he's in the Air Force Band in San Antonio, and he's an Air Force arranger now, and he's also big time in setting up drum corps shows.
Good for him.
He is he's an industry unto himself.
That's
We
awesome.
have some
Doug,
amazing arrangers.
yeah. Hey, Doug, just because you're doing the tuba ensemble virtually now, and you and Jim, I mean, Jim writes some stuff for this, but brass quintet wise, you just had a rehearsal the other day and you were running through stuff. It's so hard to keep it going right now, but when you got to do that, it's like going home almost, right?
Well, it's sure it's a change, but it's still worth doing. And with technology, the learning curve is steep, but we're able to connect. I think the Eastman School, you've been in person, right? You've been able to get together.
Yeah.
Lucky.
And
Fortunately, we don't have so many people right now that we can do it in a big room with enough space in between.
well,
There have been times when we've had way too many people to do it now.
how many students are in your studio?
Right now, there are 10,
Oh my.
and
That's
we have, I think we have 1 or 2 openings. We have like 18 or 20 applicants for next year.
congratulations. Do you find your applications are up from previous?
They've always been fairly substantial,
Yeah. And
but it's weird. Yeah.
well, I think your students are very fortunate because I'll just, as a teacher, you're someone who brings a very diverse experience. You've played rodeos, you've played with the Souza Band, and yet the bulk of your career has been in a symphony orchestra. And you've studied, I mean, you were there, you knew and know all the
The
great
guys.
in our field. And I think, would you mind talking a little bit about your teaching philosophy and what you aim to do and what you have been able to do at the Eastman School?
I can't say that specific have a teaching philosophy, but what I have is I try to never forget what it was like to be sitting in that chair that they're sitting in. And I try to never make them feel uncomfortable the way a few teachers I've encountered would. I've encountered people who seem to have a need to be recognized for their imaginary accomplishments or something, and none of my specific teachers. I've had 4 major teachers, and but they've all had tremendous input, and some of the things they put across, I would never tell the students. One of my favorite teachers I only had 2 lessons with was Joe Novotny, and he was an amazing player and incredibly powerful, instinctive musical mind. But if you listen to the things he said, you would never play another solo. You would just never play too high or too low, and Bill Bell. When I first showed him circular breathing, he didn't want to know about that whatsoever, at all. And then, my another teacher I had was Bill Rose at the University of Houston, and it was invaluable because we essentially learned how to play Rose shoes, and melodically, and play exactly what was written, and so it was just. But no one person encompasses the things that I think need to be gotten across. But for me, the primary thing was what was it like to be sitting in that chair? What does it actually feel like to not be able to do something on the horn and not just have someone tell you or give you an etude or give you a book and have it magically appear. But how do you make that continuity from your first day when you're in whatever band you started out in or orchestra and got it in your head that you wanted to do it in a totally non-destructive kind of way. I've met some incredibly destructive people, and I'm definitely not a big fan of the ego maniac kind of people who, for whatever reason, and they just have to insert themselves into everything. And that's why like we now have a scholarship that Jim Self has started at our school. And we've had some. I try to have as many master classes as we can get away with. And, if you guys can come, do it. We've got a whopping $500 for you. It'll cover your coffee on the airplane flight. But the whole idea of people who come and are helpful and make the students get better, and as far as opposed to the people who come and just want to show you how much amazingly bizarre stuff they can play. And
awesome.
Don't need that. I can watch Clint Eastwood movie.
If you could generalize, and I don't know if we can when we talk about students, do you find there's one or two things that almost all of them need? Some come with this talent or this talent. They're at very high percentiles, but generally, I look at teaching as like, well, why are you here? Because obviously, quite hopefully, I have something to offer to you. Is that part of your equation, or have you seen something that in general most students need, say, an incoming freshman?
Well, I'm pretty fierce. If they're spending $76,000 to go to school at Eastman, somebody's paying that money, and they need to be accountable for that. Yeah. And one teacher I had in particular, one of my favorite people. I didn't know, of course, I knew nothing, but when I decided I was going to leave and go to study with Bill Bell, he began to tell me stuff that he was saving for senior year, like how to play orchestral excerpts, or how to play high or low, or that he had a whole plan. Every year you're going to get a little bit more information, and then blah blah blah. But for me, I want them to know immediately that, for example, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when Jabba the Hutt first came around on orchestra pops concerts, that was the end of a few people's careers.
Oh yeah.
And
it ain't easy, baby.
And you can, you better practice Army, because anytime you get a John Williams score, you're up the creek. And I don't know if you guys have played the Henry Mancini arrangement of it's called Conquest, from a movie called Captain from Castile. I think the composer might be David Raxon, but I'm not sure. It makes Fountains of Rome look like nothing. So in fact, I took it. You're not supposed to do this when you're on the road, but I took it out of the book in Omaha, Nebraska, and went to a blueprint place because there were no Xerox places. And I got them to make me a copy of it. And I've since used it as sight reading. But it's pretty much, it's got to be Tommy. It's beyond belief. And it's almost impossible. And so I just want them to be aware of what they have to do, but also why they're doing it. The plan is not to graduate from there. The plan is to get a job. The plan is to get the skills. Not to. Right. And I a lot of times if you run across them, I'll sometimes tell them, okay, who wants to sub in the Buffalo Philharmonic tomorrow morning? And they all raise their hands, and so then I bring up my folder of whatever we're playing, and we have a little sight reading experience. usually none of them are going to be playing in the Buffalo Philharmonic.
Well, proof's always in the pudding now, isn't it?
You know, especially these days. You know, anything,
Absolutely.
the soundtrack to we recorded big parts of the soundtrack to the Red Violin, and also to what was that other Corrigiano thing? Anyway, it was like if you don't have notes far below the piano and far up into the treble clef, you better not show up to that concert.
Yeah.
And just you know, you know, to me, the reality of everything is whatever's in your folder, you better be able to play it, and you better have enough sense to look at your folder at least the day before.
Yeah, I always tell my students, Don, always know what you signed up for, and always know that you said yes, because both of those things are huge things. Even if you want to bail out, you said yes, so there's no bailing out. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the whole thing. I have a real problem with lack of integrity when it comes to saying yes to stuff. If you said yes, you should do it, and that's just all there is to it. But by saying yes, you should also be prepared and know what you've signed up for. So then when you open the book and goes, oh, well, I can't do that, then you shouldn't have said yes. And it's really that clear cut. And believe me, with a lot of people, my children grew up that way, unfortunately, and they've been able to make better decisions. But my students sometimes shouldn't say yes. And unfortunately, that's a life lesson. And they come back and go, well, you know, don't bitch to me, man. You know, because now you just learned something now, didn't you? And I'm sorry you had to learn it the hard way, because unfortunately, that person is not going to call them again for work. And
Right.
that's really what the bottom line is that if you say yes, you had better damn well be able to do the work. Otherwise, you're not going to get called again for a bunch of years. And that's just the way it is. Because there's 5 other guys right behind you waiting to do that probably can do that. So, you know, I know Doug deals with this a lot in his studio where, well, I got this gig, but I showed up and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Or I've had students before going, well, I showed up to this gig and all there were treble clef lead sheets on. And I'm going, well, I've shown you how to read treble clef lead. Yeah, but it had changes. And I'm going, then why did you say yes? You know, I'm sorry, but we went over this shit and you didn't bother to learn or hear what I was saying. And I think that's one of the big things that I find a big beef about with some of these universities is that, like you said, Eastman $76,000, USC $65,000, right? Blah, blah, blah. All these other astronomical figures to go and learn how to play tuba better. And you're just going to sit there and skate and expect that you're just going to come out and get a job? No, it's not that way. And it's also that small fish, that big fish in a small pond thing too. Yeah, well, you may have been a mofo or whatever at USC or at Eastman or anything, but guess what? Multiply that by 100. That's how many other guys or girls are out there that can do the same damn thing that you can do and are looking for the same damn job. So it becomes, I mean, the reality thing, and that's one thing I wish more university teachers would do is give them the reality speech, because it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. And I think that's the other thing too. It's not supposed to be easy. That's why it takes so much work. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, right? I mean, you don't just magically become a great musician. It takes work. It takes practice. It takes listening. It takes all this other kind of stuff. Now, you can be a mediocre musician and a mediocre player. There's tons of people like that, but that's why the middle's so fat, right? I just, you know, you want to be great. Guess what? It takes a little bit more. And just because you can afford $75,000 a year for an education doesn't mean that that's going to happen. I mean, anyway, sorry to rant. So many students doing graduate work and doctoral work after all this kind of stuff, and they still can't, for instance, don't know what a blues is. They blew off their theory. They don't know what changes are. 1-6-2-5. I have all my students analyze what they play so they know what they're playing. That's the right thing to do. You should know this stuff. It's just music. And once again, like our earlier conversation, be the musician first and the player second. Be the musician, because it doesn't mean crap over here if you can't execute and make that music happen. Anyway, sorry to go off on the rant, but you got me there, man.
Well, Don, did you have I had a question for you, but you go first. Don, hey, here's my question. Did you, of all the things you did you ever find how much in your life, in your career, did luck play a part? You know, so many musicians talk about being in the right place at the right time.
I would say partially a huge number of things, based on the fact that after that one pivotal lesson with Bill Bell, where he said to get the arbin and doing it front to back and move the notch up, after that point, I was not too concerned about anything technical on the horn, but at the same time, when opportunities came, I was extremely addicted to piano. So everything I think about and do musically is I hear it through my fingers and I think of it in terms of a keyboard.
Sure.
And so
sure.
What began to happen for me was the fact that I felt able to try things that I had never even thought about being able to do before, because as a little kid, I always played the piano by ear. So I approached everything by ear. So if I heard someone do something, I would steal it.
As
so
you
if
should.
I heard you do something, I would steal your stuff. And I would figure out what you're doing if I really liked it. And, I can't tell you, the number of people you run across who are doing amazing. You were talking about Pure Nick earlier. Think about that guy. We were in Poland this last year. I really wanted to